Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. That is correct, Matt.
Good evening. We are just so thrilled that we actually have an audience with us tonight. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the West Orange Board of Education Public Board meeting on this first day of summer, June 21st, 2021. So good evening, Dr. Cascone, members of the board, and to those of you who are viewing with us tonight, live streaming. We're delighted that you're here. Mrs. Flowers, would you please do the roll call?
Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please. Mrs. Huerta?
Here.
Mrs. Merklinger?
Here.
Mr. Rothstein?
Here.
Vice President Tunnicliffe?
Here.
President Trigg Scales?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I kindly have a motion for consideration of the closed meeting minutes of June 7th, 2021, and public meeting minutes for June 7th and 14th, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Any discussion on the minutes? Mrs. Flowers, please.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliffe,
Yes.
President Trix Scales.
Yes.
Thank you.
And next on the agenda is a report from our student liaisons, but as I glanced down the table, I realized that they're not with us tonight. They are our seniors, and I'm sure they're. Are you here? Oh. Well,
Very nice.
we have Miss Andre Celestin. Let's give her a round of applause. Her partner this year has been Miss Olivia Ridley, and they have just been outstanding. So intuitive, and we've learned a lot from them. So the young child shall lead. They have helped us quite a bit this year. So we congratulate you. Some big things are happening for you on Thursday evening, I believe. I heard that. Somebody told me that. Okay. So we're going to move right into the superintendent's report. Dr. Cascone.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, President Trix Scales. And good evening to all those in attendance tonight, community members, staff, administration, friends. I do have a brief report relative to the Safe Return Plan, but I'm going to table that until after we do our awards recognition. Just kind of continuing with that theme of just kind of recognition and celebration. It's been an exciting couple of weeks. I've been running around like a crazy man around the district. If you follow me on social media, you've seen various postings, but it's been a real joy getting out into the schools, seeing our kindergarten moving up ceremonies, our 5th grade moving up ceremonies, 4 of our 8th grade ceremonies, and just super impressed and really just kind of overjoyed to interact with parents and really just the warm welcome that I've received in all the schools, and most importantly, just see the kids smiling and sort of really enjoying their moment in the sun, if you will. So I wish all of them the best and congratulations. And that's a great segue into our program under the superintendent's report tonight. This is a tradition which was started prior to my arrival in the district. It was at times called the Parade of Honors. In past years, the program might have been a bit longer. There might have been more nominees, but owing to wanting to be mindful of our space and not overcrowding the space, we went for a little bit more of a streamlined approach this year. But nonetheless, we are very excited at the end of the year to really kind of take stock and to recognize various staff members, various students, community members for, as that saying goes, you know, it takes a village, and that's truly what it's taken for us to kind of get where we are today and what progress we have made, right, from where we were last year. And so tonight's really about that. It's about celebrating individual accomplishments, but it's about celebrating our triumph really as a community through this once in a century challenge. And so with that, I would just provide some kind of housekeeping items. I'm going to have President Trix Scales and Vice President Tunnicliffe join me on stage. Ms. Flowers has been kind enough to assist in the distribution of the certificates. As you're called, you should maintain your mask. You will enter the stage from that side. We'll present you with your certificate, your award, and then we'll ask you to join Board President, Board Vice President, myself, If you have the individual who nominated you and they're here tonight, they will also come up. And in that case, if I see them, I will ask them to come up and present the award. If they're not here, I'll do that on their behalf. You may, when you're up here, if you feel comfortable, you may remove your mask for the picture, but you are more than welcome to keep that on as well. And if there are any family members in the audience who would like to approach the stage and get a picture as well, you're welcome to do that. Again, we would just ask that you maintain the mask. That would also go for public comment as we get later in the meeting. If there's anyone who wishes to come up and speak, you would come up, leave your mask on, and then remove it while you speak if you wish, and then replace it as you return to your seat. So with that, we're excited to begin our recognition awards. Okay. This first award is an Outstanding Community Service Award, which goes to 2 Roosevelt students. And I think I saw Mr. Hush in the audience. Mr. Hush, would you like to come up and present this first award? Ladies and gentlemen, Principal Lionel Hush, Roosevelt Middle School.
We have Violet Colenstein and Rihanna Giuliano. Just to give you a little background in regards to the two. Violet and Rihanna are 2 7th graders at Roosevelt Middle School who have exhibited an amazing passion and commitment towards the environmental health of both our school and our community. Despite being new students at Roosevelt in the midst of a pandemic, they have spent this year innovating and creating to build a community of environmentally minded students and adults from home. They started the year with an idea to have students build a mobile from recycled plastic bottles and turn that idea into an entire movement of plastic art that they have shared throughout the West Orange Public Schools with their weekly newsletter. They have worked hard to invite students of all ages to participate and have started a social media movement to encourage other community members to share their projects and ideas. In addition to the plastic art projects, they developed our first annual Earth Day contest to encourage more young people to be creative with their garbage and more aware of the consequences of single-use plastics. They also led a protest for environmental awareness in front of the South Mountain Recreation Complex and were highlighted in the Turtleback Zoo monthly newsletter for their efforts. Both of these 7th graders have been instrumental in getting the Roosevelt Middle School garden renewed after a year of no school and are working hard to find grants and community participation in both the garden and new recycling initiatives at Roosevelt. The work they have done this year alone is outstanding, and we look forward to seeing their amazing ideas and projects progress as they move into the 8th grade and beyond. Rihanna and Violet.
Thank you, Mr. Hush. And again, congratulations, ladies. Okay, this next award goes to several Liberty Middle School students. And we also have the honor of Mr. Robert Klimt, Liberty Principal. So we'd ask Mr. Klimt to come up and present this next award. Also, this one is for outstanding creative expression. And Ms. Richardson, Patty Richardson, who is an ELA teacher at Liberty. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It is my absolute honor to recognize these three individuals who wrote beautiful essays and poems. Every year at the 8th grade level, a requirement, we like to say, is that each of the students need to write a poem or an essay on the topic of passages. So if there was ever a more timely time to write about passages and moving and transitioning from one place to that of another and change, this was the time to write it. And these students, every one of them did an amazing, amazing job. And then we had the hard task of finding 3 finalists, and it was really difficult. But these 3 were absolutely phenomenal, and it is my absolute distinct honor and pleasure to announce the recipients. So on behalf of Dr. Gordillo, we have Natalie Feliz. On behalf of Mr. Bridge, we have Nicole Ang. And on behalf of myself, Mrs. Richardson, Mr. Justin Lopez. And West Orange High School is very blessed to have these 3 individuals joining their ranks. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Klimt, Ms. Richardson. And again, congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. This next award is a Student Leadership Award. And this award is presented to our student liaisons, board student liaisons this year. First, I'm going to introduce our one student liaison who was unable to attend tonight, and that's Olivia Ridley. Olivia, in addition to attending Yale in the fall, was a Board of Education liaison and wrote a play, which was selected along with 6 other students to participate in a nationwide event, #Enough. The plays were written by teens to end gun violence. And she had just a note that she wanted to offer to the attendees. First, thank you for extending such an honor to me. I care so deeply about this community, and the fact that you'd like to honor me at the meeting means so much to me. However, it pains me to say that I do not think I will be able to attend. I would give anything to be able to be there. I cannot express how grateful I am for such an honor from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. So we congratulate Olivia Ridley. On the other hand, we do have our second student liaison, and that's Andre Celesti. Also, Student Leadership Award, was a Board of Education liaison this year, was a member of the West Orange Youth Caucus, which promotes and organizes social change projects, was also #1 in the state of New Jersey with the best time in the 100-meter hurdles. It gets better. Broke the West Orange High School record in the 100-meter hurdles and received a full track and field scholarship to Louisiana Tech. She's the whole package. Come on up, Andre. This next award is also goes to a student. This is for an outstanding community service award. And this award goes to a student that created and implemented the Little Free Pantry, which was installed at 96 Washington Street. The pantry provides free food items to anyone in the neighborhood who has a need. All they have to do is walk up to the pantry and take what they would like. The ribbon cutting ceremony was held on May 27th. And the winner of this award, the recipient of this award, is Soham Bhatnagar. Soham? Soham also delivered the graduation speech, the promotion speech at the Liberty promotion ceremonies, and did a fantastic job as a former Liberty School student. This next award, Student Leadership Award. Unfortunately, this student was not able to be here tonight. But this student received two awards, the Student Leadership Award and the Outstanding Community Service Award. She received the Student Leadership Award as the Student Council President and a community activist who organized the first Juneteenth event and Black Lives Matter rally to raise awareness. And this award goes to Anya Dillard. Oh, she's here. She's in the house. Fantastic. Okay. Love giving awards. It's like the holiday season in June. It's fantastic. Makes you feel good, doesn't it? This next award is a award that's it's awarded annually, and I believe it's in its, I want to say, third year, maybe fourth year. And this is the Dylan Pannell Mountaineer Trailblazer Award. I do believe we also have Mr. and Mrs. Pannell in the audience. So if you're here tonight, if you would come up and join us on the stage for this award, Mr. and Mrs. Pannell. And this is actually an award that's selected by the board and awarded by the board. And before what's the word I'm looking for? Announce, that's right. The recipient, I would just ask if maybe Mr. and Mrs. Pannell would like to come up and maybe speak a little bit about the award, please.
The usual. Thank you. Hi. Our son Dylan's a 2014 high school graduate from here, went to Roosevelt. Mr. Hush, thank you. Mr. Hush has something to do with this. In 8th grade, Dylan decided that because he visited his father's school in Rahway, saw an ROTC program there and really wanted one here in his hometown. and approached his principal and vice principal at Roosevelt. That's where Mr. Hush comes in, and went to a Board of Ed meeting, very nervous, but got enormous support from the Board of Ed, the administration, teachers, people in town, worked really hard. During sequestration was going on, this took a long time, but everybody kept working. Dylan kept fighting for it, writing letters. And finally, in his senior year, in 2013, it became the Mountaineer Squadron, the JROTC here. And it is now an honor squadron with Major Marcassini and Chief Thurston. It has gone to levels that Dylan would have just dreamed about. Dylan is now a lieutenant junior grade in the United States Navy, graduated from the Naval Academy, and proudly still holds West Orange dear. He's, yes, always, always, always. And he's about to go to, just finished his nuclear program, and he's so excited for this night. This award means a lot to him, not because his name is on it, but because of what Dylan always felt. Two big influences. One, Lieutenant Travis Mannion, a Marine lieutenant who lost his life, always said, if not me, then who? And also someone local to the high school, Coach Zakella, who always said during wrestling, dwell or excel. And that's what you've got to do. And I see by the awardees here, I don't really have to say that. You're already doing that. So congratulations to the student who is getting this award. This means so much to my husband and I, and to Dylan as well. Thank you.
And so thank you, Mrs. Pannell, for those comments and providing our audience with some perspective on the award. So this next student, just anecdotally speaking, you have a unique student, an exceptional student, when they sort of establish, regular correspondence with the superintendent about business which they want to get done. And, and I love that, because I don't have a lot of interaction with students. So whenever I see a student that has the drive and the motivation to want to reach out to the superintendent, I know that's a special kind of young person. And so this next student is a senior at the high school and is the founder and president of SAMHA, or the Student Alliance for Mental Health Awareness. This student has collaborated not only with me as the superintendent, but also with the high school administration and student counseling department to organize mental health awareness presentations for the high school staff as well as the middle school staff. This student organization will now continue into next year as well after the student's graduation. And so it's with great pride that I announce this year's Dylan Pannell Mountaineer Trailblazer Award to Victoria Brazos. So again, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Pannell, and congratulations, Victoria. An endeavor always important, but particularly in these times, never more relevant. So that concludes for the moment, our student awards. We'll now move on to Outstanding Community Service Awards. And the first Community Service Award goes to an individual who I was joking at the senior athletes ceremony that there has to be more than one of him. I mean, I'm convinced, and he joked that one of his favorite movies was Multiplicity. I literally think there's 6 of them because in addition to having, I would imagine a rather busy private practice, he also serves as district physician to a number of school districts. And if the amount of time that he spent with those districts, with our district rather, is any indication, I literally don't know when you sleep. So if you want to share that secret, I'd love to hear it. But all kidding aside, he has been an absolute Dr. Michael Kelly. Dr. Kelly, would you come up and join us? Dr. Kelly has just been, anytime we've needed him, any time of day, night, weekends, holidays, was always on call, was always there, willing to lend his counsel and his advice. And Dr. Kelly, it's a small token of our appreciation, but we wanted to take this public moment to recognize you and thank you for all of your service to the district. Okay. Now this next group of, this next recipient is, this has been a partner. We've enjoyed, I would say, a bit of a symbiosis over the course of the last 15 months. There have been times when we've helped out them. There have been times when they've helped out us. And so it's really a great example of a true community partnership. There was a time when we were about to open and we were in need of gowns, basically surgical gowns for our teachers that were our nurses and our teachers that were working with some of our special needs students. The supply chain had us jammed up. They were not going to be here in time. And RWJ Barnabas came to our assistance, and more specifically from RWJ Barnabas is Margie Heller, who is also a longtime member of the community, and I believe a graduate of West Orange High School, if I'm not mistaken. So Margie Heller, come on up. We thank you. This next Community Service Award is really an amazing person, amazing organization. One of our greatest efforts over the course of the last 15 months has been ensuring that our food insecure families had access to food and to nutrition. And, our own food services company, Mashios, did an incredible job. But the need is, there's never too much assistance that could be given in that regard. And I actually have to thank a former board member, Mrs. Mordecai. She sort of kind of connected me with Tony's Kitchen in Montclair. And it was at that time that I became introduced to Ann Merman, who is the director, I suppose you would call it, of Tony's Kitchen. And it was really a relatively quick and relatively easy conversation. They were looking to help out. And from that point on, every Friday, they would come to, I believe it was Washington School, Hazel School as well, and deliver basically weekly parcels, including fresh fruits and vegetables. And it was just, and so, as a matter of fact, Anne reached out to me and was like, can we continue to help you? What can we do to continue to help? And so they're going to continue to work with us this summer in partnership with our food services company. So I'd like to call Ann Merman up from Tony's Kitchen. Ann, are you here? Ann Merman? I thought Ann was going to be here. Well, that's okay. The service stands. Next is going to be a fairly large group calling up. And so as I call each individual up, if you want to come up and you can just kind of take a place in front of the screen here. But this next group are our PTA presidents from each of our schools. And our PTAs have been just absolutely amazing this year. From assisting at the end of the year with the organization, helping to organize events for our students, fun types of events, knowing that principals were at critical mass, kind of stepping in and helping out with that. They were so generous and kind to our teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week to make sure that our teachers felt celebrated and appreciated. And just, helping with the sharing of information, just being active and engaged partners. And so I can't thank them enough. We really do have some outstanding PTAs. And I've been in a lot of districts, but we really have, and I think Ms. Tunnicliffe can speak to this as well. We have best practice PTAs in this district, truly outstanding. And so with that, I will introduce them one at a time. We have Ms. Flowers, maybe if you would. We have Sky Monahan from Gregory School. Jennifer Crane, St. Cloud. Mary Dunleavy, Edison. Victor Garcia, Washington School. Row for 5. Patricia Gomez, Redwood. Yes. From Hazel Fatu Mbaye. From Roosevelt, Suzanne Pasquale. From Kelly, Laura Ramos. From Liberty, Lee Sutton. From West Orange High School, Brooke Tippins. And from Mount Pleasant, Katie Witzik. Well, they're busy people. They're probably out doing PTA work. That's okay. Well, you know what? It does not diminish their efforts. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah. Well, in the flurry of our daily routines and in putting things together and the volume of work that comes across our desk, sometimes there are oversights. And so I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the president of the Council of PTAs, which is Tez Roro. So let's give Ms. Roro a hand. Now, Ms. Roro is not an officer in a school-based PTA, but she runs the Council of PTAs, which is where the presidents come together. And it is a great information sharing body. And Tez is a passionate advocate for things that matter in the district. So next time I see Tez, I'll tell her I owe her a coffee or something like that. And so, but if we get this preschool expansion grant done, then maybe that'll do at some point. So this next award goes to a dedicated group of parent advocates. sometimes we tangle a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think we always come back to the same point, which is that we're here for the kids and we truly have their best interest in mind. But aside from that, it's a group that is really, they're informed advocates. We find ourselves sometimes really engaging with them meaningfully and getting constructive information from them because they're always actively pursuing information themselves. And sometimes they have knowledge and information that we don't. And of course, they're dedicated to advocacy and serving some of our neediest students with the most specialized needs. And so I'd like to call up the members of WOCPAC, or the West Orange Special Education Parent Advisory Council, for an Outstanding Community Service Award. And you can come up one at a time. First is the chair, Gina Velasquez. Gina. Co-chair, Christina DeMarco. Treasurer, Amber Newsom. Amber, you here? Diversity Chair, Yasaura Fernandez. Education Chair, Nicole Rufo. Events Chair, Delisa Francis Abdullah. Oh, no. Well, Deb Milstein is the web chair and Lisa Renwick is the secretary. But we have the chair and the co-chair here. We're thrilled to have them. Okay. This next group of professionals school nurses have an interesting place in our organizations, in our schools, because although they're not educational administrators, they really are health administrators, and as such, they're in situations. Nurses is kind of like a trump card. What nurses as medical professionals say trumps at times what a principal says or what a superintendent says, because at the end of the day, they hold credentials and expertise that we don't. And so it makes them truly valued members of the organization and professionals in the organization. And certainly operating within a pandemic, I mean, at no time was this more important. And just as teachers had to relearn their craft, and really kind of adapt to new challenges overnight, so did our nurses, right? Because while they certainly were accustomed to dealing with a whole host of matters and medical issues in the office, certainly managing students and schools during a global pandemic, it was not in the playbook. But that being said, they were tremendous throughout the year, and they were really good at keeping the information coming to us. We got a lot of questions, but that's okay, because they weren't necessarily questions we would have thought of otherwise. And so getting through this year, we could not have done it without them. When I would go into schools, I would see them there in their scrubs and their face masks and their masks, their visors, and just buzzing around those schools, and just had a tremendous amount of appreciation and respect every time I saw them. So I'd like to call up our school nurses. Please come up one at a time, and we're happy to present you with just a small token of the district's appreciation. First, from the BMELC, Linda Connolly Schoner. From Gregory School, Rosalie Dudkowitz. From Hazel, Patience Alote. From Kelly School, Nurse Nancy Feldman. From Mount Pleasant, Brianna Grasso. From Redwood, Olakawakemi Aborisade. From St. Cloud, Shayna Brown. From Washington School, Janice Lewis. From Edison School, Elizabeth Ramos. From Liberty, Rosemary Tan. From Roosevelt, Eleonora Ackerman. And from West Orange High School, Denise Macri Worzen. Round of applause for our school nurses. So this next group of folks, if I was authorized to provide bonuses, which of course I'm not, but if I were, I'd have to sign this crew up. So as you know, we push out a lot of content. I push out a lot of updates, letters. I mean, during the winter, it was wow. I mean, they were coming in fast and furious. And of course, the timeline within which we have to get them out, making sure that it's timely, making sure that it's coordinated, requires that I reached out to these individuals whenever, early. And when I say early, I mean 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, late, weekends, holidays. I called this group my comms team, and these were the individuals who would be responsible for posting updates to social media, sending out all of my letters via school messenger, posting them to the website, I hear folks say, well, we were really impressed with your communication. Some people say no, but I hear a lot of people say they were impressed with it. But if you're impressed with it, it has as much to do with this group of people because they made sure that it went out consistently and in a timely fashion. And so I would absolutely be remiss if I did not acknowledge these individuals, part of my comms team here. And that's our district director of technology, Phil Santiago. Come on up, Phil. From within the technology department, Anthony Pisinich. I'm not sure, is Rishi here? Okay, Rishi Ramchadani, who's also from the technology department. And Perry Bashkoff. Is Perry here? Okay. And she insisted that I not acknowledge her publicly, but she's as much a part of this as anyone, and that's my executive assistant, Mrs. Elizabeth Hughes, who is right there on point all the time. So I owe her a debt of gratitude as well. So here we go. And while, I would be remiss, while I suppose this individual had the, was fortunate that she was not one of the folks who I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning. But you may know that we've been placing trying to place a greater emphasis on the district's public relations and just kind of our messaging and things of that nature. And so we've been at the board's public relations subcommittee, which Mrs. Merklinger and is Miss Merklinger, right? And Miss Huerta are part of the board public relations subcommittee. And that is also made up of Mr. Bashkoff, but also Miss Cynthia Cumming. So I just want to acknowledge Cynthia Cumming. Cynthia's Cynthia is at events. She's here tonight and has been doing a great job of writing things up. So Cynthia, we appreciate your efforts as well in helping us get the great messages and accomplishments of our district out. Okay, this next group of individuals, as you know, we've been placing a focus on really looking at diversity, equity, access. What does that mean? To us as an organization, How do we approach that? And, over the course of this year, just by virtue of a lot of the other responsibilities that we in the central administration were taking on, it really necessitated that we kind of establish a subcommittee that could help out. And so this group of individuals really, really took up, picked up the ball and ran with it. And as a result of that, while many of our initiatives could have stalled and not moved forward this year, just by virtue of managing operations and learning amidst the global pandemic was more than a full-time job. But we knew that our initiatives as they related to diversity, equity, and access needed to move forward. And this group of individuals, part of our district equity and access committee, was a big part of making sure that happened, particularly on the training end. And so I would just like to acknowledge them for their outstanding community service and call them up one by one. First is our Director of Student Counseling Services, Ms. Cheryl Butler. Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Ms. Ebony Demendez. District Supervisor of Social Studies, Michael Figueredo. Roosevelt Middle School Principal, Mr. Lionel Hush. The relatively newly installed principal of Redwood Elementary School, Ms. Kimya Jackson. Roosevelt Middle School teacher, science, I believe, Ms. Hillary Rubenstein. Here. And finally, our district supervisor of science, Ms. Stephanie Suriano. This next award, as you know, we all know that resources in public schools are limited, and the importance of being able to generate and take advantage of additional revenue that is available to us has never been more critical. On an annual basis, we have our ESSA grant, previously known as the NCLB grant, but this year they came in fast and furious. We are now in the process of finalizing the third ESSER grant. These were large grants. They were new grants. The timelines to complete them were extremely short. And the ESSER 1 grant was extremely critical to us being able to do what we did this year. And the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 grants are going to be even more so. This is not something that necessarily makes a tweet or an Instagram post or Facebook post. It's the kind of thing that gets done in the back rooms of the central office, grinding it out, grinding through the grant application, entering data. And I would be remiss as the superintendent if I, did not publicly acknowledge the efforts of this administrator who's been central and been absolutely critical in this work. And so I'd like Ms. Terry Granado to come up and be acknowledged for outstanding work with the doing of the grants for many grants, which have brought the district millions of dollars. So Ms. Granado. Okay, so this next award, another Outstanding Community Service Award. At this time, I'd like to call up our District Supervisor of World Languages and ESL, Mr. Felix Plata, para presentar este próximo, ¿cómo se dice award? Premio. Premio.
Okay, it's hello. Okay, it's my privilege to present this award of recognition to Mrs. Meritorious for her dedication and the outstanding work she has done with the English language learners at Kelly Elementary School. In addition to the tireless lesson planning, coordinating of new intake assessments for our students recently arrived to West Orange, the coordinating of the state assessments for the access test, and assisting the ESL department in promoting the COVID vaccine opportunities that were offered by the township as well as the county. Ms. Kiro spearheaded also a collaborative PLC, professional learning community, with her colleagues from Kelly Elementary School, Mrs. Stephanie Ross, the reading specialist, and Diane Phelan, the resource teacher. That PLC has helped develop a prototype of interventions that help distinguish between student behaviors that may indicate potential learning disability challenges and those that may be due to English language proficiency levels. This work has been and will continue to be invaluable when considering appropriate services and interventions for English language learners before, during, and after the INRS process. In addition, these three teachers presented their work at the New Jersey TESOL Bilingual Education Conference to over 300 eager participants and represented West Orange once again very proudly throughout the state of New Jersey. This topic has been for a long time a challenging topic, and the work that we're doing at Kelly School, again spearheaded by Ms. Kiros, is greatly appreciated, and the students of West Orange are very fortunate for this work. So Ms. Kiros, can you please come up? Thank you.
All right, just a couple more to go here. So this next award goes to a member of the West Orange High School staff, a science teacher. But that's really just the beginning of what she does here in our school community, in our high school community. She's receiving a Distinguished Service Award and is being recognized really for her continued volunteerism at school events, for her commitment to the students, and not only as one of the co-advisors for the Student Council, but her continued passion to advocate for our students. She was also recognized as the West Orange High School Teacher of the Year last year, and is just omnipresent. I mean, she's just always around. I joked with her today when we told her, I invited her to the meeting, and we promised we're not going to ask you to do anything tonight. We promise. So she's really just such an asset to the school community. And I'd like to present this award for distinguished service to Catherine Connors. Ms. Connors. Right. So this next award goes to three educators, two professional educators, one educational leader. But really, I think when we talk about these two professional educators, they are likewise educational leaders. Sometimes the most robust leadership comes from within the classroom, and I think that would absolutely apply to these two teachers. And these awards go to three staff members who earned their doctorate this year. For anyone that's been through the process, it's a labor for sure. It's a terrific accomplishment. We're so proud of these staff members for this accomplishment, but more importantly, what they bring to our organization every day. And so I'd like to call you up one by one. Dr. Leslie Chung, Assistant Principal, West Orange High School. Come on up, Dr. Chung. Dr. William Farley, Teacher of Vocal Music, West Orange High School. And Dr. Jessica Nuzzi, Teacher of Math, West Orange High School. And our final award of the night is an award for meritorious service. On any given day, our teachers, our administrators are performing, small, random acts of kindness and small acts of heroism. But this one particular administrator and this one particular act, it just came to me in a moment that I had to acknowledge this because of really the stakes that were in this particular situation. So we had a situation where we had a middle school student who was missing. Not from us. She had gone missing on her own time, not on our time. We couldn't locate her. And over the course, I would say, of about the 36 hours that followed that initial awareness, when the parents let us know that this child had not come home, the commitment and the tenacity and the care that this principal demonstrated to do everything he could to ensure that this child was found and was returned home safely, it was as if it was his own child. And I think that, it speaks to this principal's commitment to his school, to his children, and ultimately, he played a central role in getting this child back home and getting home safely. And so I wanted to acknowledge that with this award for meritorious service to Roosevelt Middle School Principal Lionel Hush. Mr. Hush. And so that concludes our program. Well, I would just have one more round of applause for all our award recipients. And thank you so much for coming. At this time, I would ask board leadership to take place of the dais. Ms. Flowers, thank you for your assistance. You are all more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, or at this time, if you'd like to excuse yourselves, we will not be offended. Have a great night and safe home.
And we're back. Congratulations to all of our recipients. And they are gathering there in the lobby. And so before we continue with the superintendent's report and the board reports, I'd just like to say that with every parade of honors, there is always a grand marshal. And so I'd like to ask you to join me in recognizing our grand marshal, Dr. Cascone, who has led us through this last year. Flying colors. All righty, Dr. Cascone, did you have any further comments?
Just a little something here. I wanted to just kind of give some perspective on this safe return plan. So it's been very strange the way the state has sort of rolled this out. They require districts to complete a safe return plan as a prerequisite component of the ESSER 3 or their American Rescue Plan funding. But they did not provide any revised guidance or guidelines that advanced the development of the safe return plan, which sort of necessitated school districts to sort of play and kind of hit it straight down the fairway, play close to the vest. And I did confer with a number of other superintendents in Essex County, and the response was almost across the board the same, which was, we sort of just posted what we're doing now and, awaiting further guidelines. Now, some might say, well, why didn't you propose something out of the box in the safe return plan? Well, because if we had, within this plan, adopted protocol that were not aligned with the current guidelines, we may have run the risk of the plan not being approved. But we also know that if the safe return plan is implemented as it's written, it will not enable us to be aligned with the governor's proclamation of going back as usual. So one of two things is going to happen over the course of the next 2 months. One is we will get revised, updated guidelines from the state, or we won't. So what if we don't? Well, then I would say that more likely than not, the New Jersey Department of Education will place a greater degree of discretion in the hands of local school districts, which means we will have to really assemble our own panel of medical and public health experts to help steer us and guide us through those guidelines in order for us to be able to open our schools in alignment with the governor's order. That being said, the intention is to pull together, we put out a survey to the staff, serving staff members who would be willing to voluntarily serve on school reopening committees this summer. We have a curriculum instruction and assessment subcommittee, a mental health subcommittee, mental health, social emotional subcommittee, and then a health and safety subcommittee, which is really more aligned with kind of public health, sanitization, things of that nature. And so that will be the work of these committees, is to work on these questions over the course of the summer. We do intend to invite community participation in these reopening committees. We'll move forward with that planning. That's kind of where we're at. But the survey that we put out to the public did yield some useful information. And I just want to kind of just highlight a few things that came from the community responses. And I'd just like to thank Mr. Mendez for helping to collate this data for me. We had 90 responses to that Google form. We had 2 community members, meaning non-school district community members, 22 teachers and staff, 62 parents and guardians, and 4 students filled out this form. There were a lot of commentaries on masks versus no masks, a lot of commentaries on vaccines, et cetera, all of which we are really awaiting additional guidance from the state on that. Now, if we don't get that guidance from the state, then we're going to have to make sense of that on our own through our own public health and medical means. But a lot of it was centered on that. And we know that people feel strongly on both sides of that. There are people who feel very comfortable and do not want students wearing masks. And there are people who feel very strongly that for students who are unvaccinated, they would want unvaccinated students to wear masks. So somehow we have to be able to chart a balanced course forward on that, as we have all along, right? And what makes it perhaps a bit more complex in West Orange, maybe, than in some other communities, is that we are a community of diverse thought, right? We're not a homogeneous community with homogeneous thought. And we've seen that in communities that are a bit more homogeneous and of homogeneous thought. It's been perhaps a little less complicated for them to be able to move forward because people are like mind. But we are a diverse community of diverse thought. And any course we move forward needs to try and find a balance between those diverse thoughts, of course, being guided by the public health and medical experts. Obviously, there were a number of thoughts on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We obviously, a big part of our ESSER 2 and our ESSER 3 grant funds are going to HVAC remediation. We expect to be approving that HVAC vendor in early July to move forward with that work. The premise of air conditioning came up. We are exploring some potential short-term solutions for that. There are some units out there, mobile air conditioning units. I asked Mr. Semino, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, to purchase a few, to trial a few that we could potentially use in some of our hotter classrooms. But we obviously recognize that that continues to be an issue and is really a larger fix long-term. Interesting. One of the comments that came in was virtual for parents who do not wish to send students to school in the fall. But the governor's indicated that, that's one thing I have gotten directly from the county office is that virtual, other than a declared state of emergency, is not allowed. I think we can assume that there are notable exceptions for students with medical fragility. I posed the question to the county saying, well, what if, we have to quarantine students? I mean, assuming that the premise of quarantining is not going away, COVID-19 is not going away, will the quarantine guidelines change? If they don't, then we're going to have students who are quarantined for 10 days at home. And how are we educating them for 10 days while they're home? So the state's boilerplate proclamation has holes. Ask any superintendent in the state and they will tell you this. And again, either they fill them in or we do, because ultimately we have the responsibility for being able to move forward and open the school district and being able to operate. We obviously a large emphasis on social emotional learning, mental health. It's certainly our intention to dedicate a significant amount of resources to that out of our grant monies, but also in terms of having a subcommittee exclusively dedicated to that. Same goes for, trauma-based professional development, also in our ESSER 3 grant, as well as, therapists to support mental health also in our ESSER plan. So while we didn't see too many novel ideas in the responses, what we did see was validation, if you will, or corroboration of things we had already built into the grant, which was good because it confirmed for us that we're on the right track with how we propose the spending. So for all those folks who submitted responses, we thank you. And again, I'm going to say it again. The goal is to be back as usual. That's the goal. And if what the state is saying that we can't learn virtually, then that's what it has to be. And again, we will at this time last year, approximately last year, we would say, oh, next year should be easier. It's like, yes and no. At least last year at the end of June, they gave us a manual and at least there was a guideline. There was a roadmap. We haven't gotten that yet. They've actually asked us to write it for them without actually telling us we have the latitude to change the guidelines. But anyway, so we may, Ms. Stonicliffe, if you had sort of had your finger on the pulse of these updates, which might have been coming out of the state, any word on that?
Not recently, no. We were told at a New Jersey school boards conference where some legislators were there that we were supposed to get guidance the end of May, beginning of June, and we've had nothing.
Yeah. So, but regardless, if we get it, great. If we don't, we chart our own course, guided by, an independent panel of medical health experts. Because at a certain point in time, we have to make decisions, and we can't wait for the state to make them for us. So that's kind of where we're at, but we are on target to submit the plan and, as importantly, the grant by the deadline on the 24th. Now, what you see on this agenda, and I'll close on this point, is you were approving the submission of the grant, and not the grant per se. That being said, in the Safe Return Plan, there is a table which provides an outline for the allocations, and therefore it is with some perspective on how we intend to spend the money that you can consider and deliberate relative to the vote on the submission of the grant. And that concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Cascone. And now we are up to board reports. Ms. Huerta.
Thank you, President Trigg-Scales. Good evening, everybody. We had a busy weekend this weekend. We had exciting Juneteenth events going on in town, here at the school and at Colgate Park. It was very nice to see all of the flag raisings and the speeches that were made, and to educate the community on what it is. I know many community members possibly never have heard of these celebrations. And then there are those that have extensive knowledge on the history of this Juneteenth celebration. And so I definitely took time to read up a bit and educate myself on the history of it. And I just really want that to continue for the community. And I hope that everybody had a happy Father's Day and a restful week. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Ms. Merklinger?
So just a few questions and just want to get some clarity. I was down in Tom's River this weekend for a baseball tournament. And, you know, I saw their stadium set up for graduation, and I'm hearing all these different things. And I personally feel a little bit of a hypocrite because my son is going back to school full-time, business as usual. So I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, you know, Fortune 500 corporate America is going back to work on site, business as usual come September. Our parents are going to be in a predicament of how are they going to have their students back in school? And I just wonder, you know, I know there is hesitancy. Not everyone feels the same way I do about being back in school with no mask, no social distancing. But back in November last year, we kind of pulled the rug and said, nope, we're going to stay virtual. And we expected parents to figure it out. So I guess, you know, I'm looking at it as there are other options for parents who don't feel comfortable sending their kids into school. There's the homeschool option, there's private school options. We expected parents to figure it out back then. And so when I'm reading through this back to school plan, I'm a little disappointed because I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of directly what we're doing, because the directives have been, it's business as usual. So I'm not sure why we're expecting a roadmap to get back to what we've always done. And so I'm just wondering, I know some of our, and I know Dr. Cascone, I think, meets with some other superintendents, and it sounds like some of their plans are a little bit more in depth, and they are going back to school, and their plans include how to be on site full-time, full day. And I'm just wondering, have we tapped into those, and what can we do to make, I know some of the hesitancy, you know, especially with the high school graduation, is not everyone feels comfortable being in close proximity or without masks. How do we make folks feel more comfortable, especially at the high school level, where students do have the opportunity to get vaccinated, parents can get vaccinated, you know, everyone has the opportunity at this point, if you are 12 years and older, to get vaccinated, if that's your choice. So I'm just, you know, curious if maybe we can just expand a little bit on about the plan and where we stand with other folks, or other districts, I should say.
Madam President, is this a report? I'm a little, I mean, obviously I'm happy to answer the questions. I'm just, in terms of kind of Robert's rules.
Yeah, it comes up a little bit
What territory
later.
are we in right now?
I think when we get to the discussion, so this would really be individual board reports, so your committee reports or activities.
Sorry.
When we get to that section.
Okay, I apologize. Usually we've had the opportunity to ask questions about superintendent's report, so I apologize.
I think he was just giving an overview for the community, but when we get to that section, Ms. Merklinger, your question would be appropriate.
So in terms of board reports, the PR committee, we've obviously worked on the town hall, and we'll be working on, you know, more items as we come up with different events that are going on in the school district. In terms of town council liaison, we are looking to, we do need to schedule a meeting. We know that there's some town plans that are coming up that affect, you know, schools like St. Cloud. And then again, when we had the discussion about busing and looking towards the safety and pedestrian safety group and how we can work with them. So those will be things that we'll be looking to work on.
Thank you. Mr. Rothstein?
Very brief in terms of reports. A decent amount of work remaining to be done on policy adoption. And so continuing to move forward, looking at the remaining policies that require approval and preparing to get those in front of the board to be able to review and approve, hopefully in very short order. And that's it.
Thank you. And Vice President Tanya Flood.
Thank you. In terms of legislative, currently on the governor's desk right now is a special education aging out bill. It's A 5366, and in the Senate, it's 3434. It requires boards of education to provide special education and related services to students exceeding their age of eligibility, which would extend their eligibility by requiring school boards to provide the services included in an IEP. And those would be to include students up to the age of 21. And this would be during the school years 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022, and 22, 23. So New Jersey school boards also successfully sought amendments to provide funding for the bill. So that's good news for us. So I think that was the one I wanted to mention today. So I think that's pretty important.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. I'll just follow up a little bit with negotiations. In our agenda tonight, we are acknowledging that we do have a memorandum of agreement with our West Orange Administrators Association. We're very pleased to be able to announce that this evening. And we continue our negotiations with the West Orange Education Association and Local 68. So that's the update there. And now we're going to move into questions from the public on agenda items only. And if we have any members of the public here who wish to speak on agenda items, we would ask that you proceed to the podium. I see no one heading that way. Mrs. Flowers, do we have questions on agenda items that came in by email?
No, we don't have any questions from our Google Doc on the agenda items.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to move right into reports, discussions, and recommendations. We do have an addendum to our personnel report tonight. I also notice that we have 3 retirements. I would like to just recognize those before we have a motion. Ms. Caroline Stoner from St. Cloud, grade 4. She is retiring after 31 years. So congratulations, Ms. Stoner. We also have Ms. Susan Mentor from Kelly, a lunch aide, retiring after 20 years. Congratulations. And Ms. Donna Farr from Kelly, paraprofessional after 19 years. Congratulations. And welcome to the Every Day is Saturday Club. And now I would like to entertain a motion for personnel items 1 through 10. Is there a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. Any discussion on personnel items 1 through 10?
I did just want to get some
Ms.
clarity.
Merklinger?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did just want to get some clarity around, so we have 2 just job descriptions under item 6. So under 3 appointments, or no, I'm sorry, it's under number 6, the approval of the following job descriptions. And I was just hoping we could get some clarity and maybe for the community to understand what the difference is between the Director of Assessment, Accountability, Intervention versus the Supervisors of Grants, Accountability, and Testing versus what the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction roles are, because those are all, from what it sounds like in reading the job descriptions, it sounds they're very intertwined with each other, one reporting to the next. So maybe just so the community can kind of understand the org chart and where those roles and how they play out.
Sure. So the Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Intervention is the position that oversees, it supervises the district's presently called the Basic Skills Department, kind of in a state of transition into the Response to Intervention Department. This department has approximately 30 teachers in it. Most of them, that includes reading specialists as well. Most of them are in the K-5 level. We do have some interventionists at the middle school level. Presently, we don't have any on the high school level. So a good portion of this person's responsibilities would be the oversight of and supervision of those 30 some odd staff members, and the oversight of the currently basic skills, ultimately the response to intervention program. In addition to that, this person would also be responsible for data mining, working not only with building principals, but also with with the staff, with the professional staff relative to pulling relevant data sets, working with administrators and staff members to kind of upskill them on their data mining and evaluation and analysis practices. And they would also be overseeing the supervisor of grants accountability and testing, who would be primarily responsible for district testing. But this administrator would actually oversee the supervisor of grants accountability and testing. The primary difference between the director of assessment, accountability, and intervention, between that position and the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, I would argue is twofold. On one hand, Mr. Mendez, the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, is directly responsible for supervising the district's curricular supervisors and directors, and is essentially responsible holistically for all the district's curriculum and assessment practices. What I would also say is that in a district of this size, though Mr. Mendez's title is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, as the number 2 administrator in the district, there are ample times when I require the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction to kind of pivot and play more of an Assistant Superintendent for Administration role, because there isn't another administrator that would take the ball or take the baton, if you will, on those matters. One is the director of director of assessment, accountability, and intervention, is a far more is a much more focused role, whereas the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction is a much more of an overseeing role for the district. And then the supervisor of grants accountability and testing is a restructure, and that person would be responsible for obviously not only all of our state and federal entitlement grants, all the district's testing programs, and that person would also have some supervision of instructional responsibilities and oversee, in partnership with Ms. Flowers, the registration department.
Any other discussion? I have did I hear something down there?
Well,
Ms. Huerta?
I did have, but go ahead. You can go ahead, Ms.
No,
Scales.
no, you go. I just didn't hear you.
I'm trying to find the wording, so go ahead. I'm sorry, because I missed my notes. I'm just trying to, you can go ahead, Ms. Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Dr. Cascone about the rescissions for the summer programs and what the impact might be. The rescissions would be where we have on previous agendas had staff who had signed up or who had agreed to participate in the summer program. And now we're seeing a number of folks who aren't. And we know it's for various reasons. People need a break. People initially thought that they would work during the summer and have now made other plans. But I just like to know how we're handling that. And I don't know if it's Mr. Mendez or.
Sure, I can answer that. Thank you, President Trigg-Scales, for that question. It's a good question. That is part of the reason why one of the items that we needed to, for which we needed to do it doesn't appear on the addendum, but there was a revised attachment for ESY appointments. So we're sort of in a a constant state. We've been in a fluid state of getting rescissions and plugging new folks into those roles. We've had to expand our search and our hiring, to external candidates. And at the end of the day, we're gonna, when it's go time, if you will, for that program, we're gonna have our core and we're gonna have to make it work with what we have, so, but we do have a little bit more runway, we might have to do some retroactive appointments, at the early July board meeting for any folks who were able to get on board between now and then. But we're leaving no stone unturned to get all those positions filled. And we will run our ESY program. We haven't been getting a lot of rescissions for the other programs. It's really just ESY, yeah. And we'll be ready to go. Have to be.
Great, great. Ms. Huerta, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I
Okay.
found my notes. So Ms. Merklinger raised a couple of questions for myself. When you explained the difference between the job titles that are mentioned in number 7 and 8, and we go to number 6, the job descriptions, I feel like it gets a bit muddled for me. And I know that they're not new job descriptions, these are revised, and they're not new, and that this is what we're approving. So I think my question is, right now we're voting on approving 7 and 8. But I feel I would feel more comfortable if we could table these two in order to adjust the job description, at least.
Which job description would that be?
Well, there's there's 2 contracts, right? 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And when we talk about that job description, or the title is Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And then we're also adding number 6, when we go up to number 6, it's a Director of Assessment and Accountability and Intervention. So when Ms. Merklinger raises the question to me of should that not fall under this particular job description? So I think, she raises to me the question of, are these?
And if I may, Ms. Martha, I provided a fairly detailed explanation. I understand you feel that the job descriptions are muddled. Perhaps I could, if you have some specific questions relative to job descriptions, perhaps I could answer those questions.
Well, when you say the job description is twofold, the supervisor supervises the supervisors, right? I'm sorry. I was taking quick notes as you were explaining to Ms. Merklinger. So if you could just elaborate a bit more on.
When I was, the job description or position, which I was referring to as twofold, was that of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. That's really I would argue, a much larger conversation, and it would be ultimately a recommendation would come from me as the superintendent, if we wanted to look at the job title and the job responsibilities for the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. As you know, we've had a number of conversations over the course of the last 3 or 4 months relative to administrative restructuring. And I would ask the board to maybe conjure up and recall some of those conversations that we had about the restructuring, some of the pivots that we needed to make. And this agenda this evening, these job descriptions, this restructure, are all inclusive of those. To table these job descriptions, to table these positions at this time, to me is not an option. But certainly I'm here at the will of the board, but I would not recommend that.
How does that affect our timeline if we were to table or not table?
Well, we have, just so I'm clear on this, you're recommending tabling.
7 and 8.
So you're recommending tabling, well, just for clarity's sake, motion number 7 is you're approving the retroactive contract for the employee for last year. So item number 7 is actually retroactive from last year. So I absolutely would not consider tabling that. As far as number 8, this employee needs to be operating under a contract. Now, if the board were interested in asking me to take another look at our administrative structure and potentially recommend making edits to that structure, that could be something we could discuss moving forward. But it's not something that I would argue is feasible to do right now. Ultimately, this employee necessitates to be operating under a contract for the new fiscal year. So to table that would be to have an employee not working under a contract. Ms. Flowers, anything you want to add to that?
We're county approved contracts, so with these contracts, there is a time frame in which we would need to have them approved and sent back to county. And I believe I will verify, I believe it's within 10 days. So that may change the process in which we would, if we were to table them, it may or have to be revisited with the county as well. So that's something I would have to follow up on.
I'm
And
sorry,
this
could you-
is the last meeting of the year, school year.
Are we not scheduling another one for July?
This is the last
for the
meeting of this
school year.
school year. June 30th
right,
is the
right.
last day of the school year, fiscal
Right,
year.
right. My apologies.
So we are out of, as Dr. Cascone likes to say, runway.
Right.
We are at the end of the road.
And I would add that the last line in any job description is basically reads, and I'm paraphrasing, any duties otherwise assigned by the superintendent. So at the end of the day, there's a flexibility under that. Mr. Mendez and I work very collaboratively on that. And certainly if there's a project or something which, doesn't necessarily fall neatly under the auspices of curriculum instruction and assessment, Mr. Mendez is more than happy to pitch in and assist with that. So, and that's really covered under the last line in the job description. But it is certainly something that, could be explored moving forward.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions or discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Flowers, would you take a vote, please?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Okay, so under 3 appointments, under B, I have to abstain on Jeannie Kevlon. That's my cousin. Under B, I guess it's 3 appointments, 3 B, the 2021-22 school year. I have to abstain on Jeannie Kevlon.
okay.
And then I would abstain on Tamika Collins. Or actually, I should say it's a no. Because I'm also voting no on 6, 7, and 8.
Would you repeat that, please, Ms. Merklinger?
So under 3 appointments, B, 2021-22 school year, item 1, I have to abstain on Jenny Kevlon because that's my cousin. And then it's a no on Tamika Collins, and that is because I am voting no on 6, 7, and 8. The rest are yes.
Okay. Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trixfield.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to curriculum. Curriculum B, curriculum and instruction, items 1 through 10. I would like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Vice President. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Discussion on B, curriculum and instruction.
I had a question with.
Ms.
number-
Huerta?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Terry, President Terry Scales. I have a question on item 4B, item 4. Approval of curriculum for 2021-2022 school year. Is this part of the presentation that we received a few months ago?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, the
um,
presentation was for the honors program, right? Correct?
No, every year, the board approves at the beginning of the year, curriculum revision and or writing projects that will be conducted during the year. Now, of course, having assumed your position on the board, Ms. Huerta, in January, those would have been motions that the previous board would have approved. But nevertheless, what you see here is those previously approved projects basically coming through fruition. Earlier, about midweek last week, Wednesday, I believe, Mr. Mendez shared the folder with all the curriculum, as well as some information relative to the revision and review process, which goes through a number of different checks and balances, including the district's curriculum council, before it's ultimately forwarded to the board. So this is approval of those projects previously approved, and as shared with the board earlier last week.
Okay.
And the attachment reflects the various curriculum which were revised.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? All right, there being none, Mrs. Flowers, please.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Scales.
Yes. And now, C, Finance. Items A, Special Services, 1 to 4, and B, Business Office, items 1 to 28. And I do see that we have a donation on page 13. So I would like to recognize the West Orange High School PTA, who donated $660 to the high school, and the Blackboard Giving Fund, and that's also to West Orange High School, and that's a parent who is engaged in the matching grant program, and that was a $40 donation. So thank you very much. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice President. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Any discussion?
I have
Yes, Ms. Merklinger.
So I noticed there are a lot of recommendations for approval, and a lot of these look like renewals of contracts. And I was wondering if maybe we could just get some clarity around the process of how those are determined. Are these, are we limited by some number of years per contract? And then have we done or considered any RFPs for any of the vendors and or services? Just in terms of, and not saying particular anyone in specific, but, the attorneys, medical director. I know we did, they put out something on the transportation, but just maybe for the community's understanding of how that process works, because there are quite a number of renewals.
So the contracts that you're seeing, recommendations are the ones that we bidded and awarded with optional renewals. So those we don't have to put out RFPs. In terms of any other professional services, we can go out for RFP at any time. These are renewals based on the agreements that we have and the rates that were already submitted with our existing professional services. And so at any time, we are planning to look at possibly putting out RFPs for other professional services, but at a later date.
And under item 27, I know we had some revised health benefit rates, which is great news for the community and in our budget. Could you speak a little bit to the process of what changed and why the rates are so different from what we looked at previously in the budget? I know we were given some notes, but just for the community's understanding.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Merklinger. So early on in the budget process, our Brown and Brown advisor. They will give us a projected rate for the year for us to budget. And then as the year goes by and they're able to get the more definitive rates for us, they'll let us know what they're seeing after the information has come back from the brokers. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing the confirmed rates because, again, a projection that they gave us back in October, November was based on what the market was doing at that time. So now we've seen that the rates now are more solidified and they have a definitive rate that we can now plan for and realize a savings later on.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? And Mrs. Flowers, along those same lines, I had a similar question because we had a note on the new rates that they would be adjusted at a later date. And I'm just wondering, when is that later date? Once the contributions,
We should see the actual savings by the end of next year because the rates
Okay.
now, yeah, so once,
okay, so it would take us the
so
fiscal
it'll take
year.
us,
Okay,
right, that is correct.
great. All right, Mrs. Flowers, would you be so kind?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trick Scales.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to D, reports. And I'm going to combine D and E for a motion. Reports acknowledge receipt of list of contracts awarded for the 12-month period ending 6/30/2021. And then the miscellaneous is the safe return to in-person instruction. So is there a motion to approve D and E?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President. Now, discussion on those two items. Mr. Rothstein.
Thank you very much. Just a question, Dr. Cascone and Mrs. Flowers, on the safe return plan. There's the grid at the back of the plan. I'm looking at pages 15 and 16 that define the different spending areas. Is there flexibility once this is submitted if it turns that more or less is needed in one area or another?
Yes, Mr. Rothstein, there can be modifications to the grant post initial submission.
Okay, great. And is it possible to add any line items should something turn up that becomes important to be addressed in any of our schools or in the district, but that wasn't a part of the original plan?
Yes,
Perfect. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Now the time that I bring up the questions. Okay. So I guess, I don't know if I need to repeat the questions that I had earlier, but like I was saying, I was expecting, I guess, a little bit more in depth. When we did our plans back a year ago, we had pages and it was really in depth and a lot more descriptive, I guess, is what I saw in terms of being in school. And so I guess I just go back to the question I had before of if we are expecting to go back to school, business as usual per the governor's directive, and we don't have the option for virtual, why are we expecting a roadmap? And then with that, like I said before, I personally feel like a hypocrite that it's okay for my son to go back to school full-time, full day, every day in September. And I feel bad that we're not pushing harder for our West Orange school student, our West Orange school district to get back to school full-time. And so I guess I would have liked to see more of that, our business as usual plans in here. And so I'm wondering, I think you said this has to be submitted by the 24th. Do we have the opportunity to make this better? And then in follow-up to that, I know there are families that are not as comfortable with COVID, right? I haven't feared it the entire time. So I come from a little bit of a different perspective on it. But people are going to be going back to work. I know a lot of Fortune 500 and corporate America is expecting folks back in the office, no rules, regulations come September, and parents are going to be in that position of having to get their kids to school or finding alternates. And, last November, we kind of said, nope, we're going to go back to staying virtual. And we told parents to figure it out. So I guess I kind of feel in this sense, it's the opposite. You do have this homeschool option, you do have other options. So in terms of getting back to school, if it is business as usual and other districts are already submitting, they were working on these plans, they're having, in-person graduations with the full class. Like I said, I was in Tom's River and I saw the setup, chairs literally next to each other. So it just makes me take pause to wonder, I understand there's hesitancy. So the question I would have then in addition to our return to school plan is how do we make folks feel more comfortable so that we can have things like graduation in person, the full class together? And how do we help, is it as a matter of setting up vaccination sites? I think that's been discussed, but just what can we do to enhance and move forward quicker and more, I guess, a more robust plan, I guess, is what I would have liked to have seen. I understand that the breakout of the monetary breakout, but just in terms of what our actual return to school plan is, I think that's where our community is kind of questioning what is going on. It is hard to hear other districts. Maybe they aren't the same size and maybe they aren't the same, but it is hard to hear all these other folks who are going back to school. I mean, they just had Yankee Stadium filled to capacity. Indoor arenas are being filled to capacity. So it's kind of hard from a school district side to say, why can't we do the same, especially with outdoor events?
Okay. Well, certainly appreciate Board Member Rutger's thoughts and presentation of the community's thoughts. I'm unclear as to what the question was. Do you have a question?
So just in terms of why did we not put together a more robust back to school plan, knowing that we're going back, like you had mentioned, we're waiting on a roadmap for return to school. And I was asking, why are we expecting that if it's business as usual? And then in addition to that, it sounded like we were potentially planning for, if we were to have an option for virtual, should we have to pivot or whatnot because of guidelines. But I guess it's more of why do we not have a more robust back to business as usual plan? Okay.
So I'll reiterate some of the comments I made during my initial report. First off, the plan that we submitted was the template which was provided by the state with the sections that the state required. I will reiterate what I said in my superintendent's report in consultation with at least 6 or 7 neighboring districts. All of them without exception indicated that they posted and submitted essentially what they are doing presently. There is a great conceit at play. And I've said this, if I've said it once, I've said it a half dozen times because we've had this same line of questioning and the same conversation for the last, 3 or 4 weeks. And that is that back as usual is incongruous with the current guidelines under which we're operating. That's the reality. That's the reality. I'm going to say it again. Back as usual is incongruous, it is contradictory, it is disconnected, mutually exclusive with the current guidelines. Example, current guidelines are 3 feet of social distance. We can't fit all of our students into our schools at 3 feet social distance. So one of 2 things will happen. Either we'll be told that you don't need to be 3 feet, or we just simply will not be 3 feet. Right? But are we going to put in a plan to the state and say our intention is not to have kids at 3 feet presently and submit a plan to the New Jersey Department of Education is disaligned with the current CDC and own state Department of Health guidelines? I would argue that would not have been prudent, which is why we didn't do it and why, to the best of my knowledge, no superintendent with whom I'm acquainted has done that for their school district for that reason. I explained in terms of what more are we doing is we are trying to conclude presently what has been a unfathomably challenging year. We're trying to conclude that successfully. That's our focus right now. We are going to wait a week, maybe two at most, to see if we get any additional guidelines from the state. If we don't, then we are going to move forward on our own volition, with our own discretion, whether we have their approval to do it or not, because we can't wait interminably for them to do that. But that is the disconnect that exists right now. And that's not my fault. And for those who wish to, look to me and say, what is your plan? Start turning advocacy towards the governor. Start turning advocacy towards the New Jersey Department of Education. Start turning advocacy towards the State Department of Health, the CDC. Where is their guidance? They know that we need to get back to school in the fall. Where are they? They're silent. And asking superintendents who are not trained epidemiologists or virologists or doctors or public health experts to have the answers about this. And quite frankly, I think it is completely unfair. But that being said, if we do not get guidance from these so-called experts, we have no choice but to move forward and find our own experts, objective public health and medical experts, to help guide us forward. And that's what we'll do. But to have submitted a plan that by suggestion was contrary to the current guidelines, I would not have felt that would have been prudent. Now, in terms of, how can we make people feel more comfortable? I don't know. That's a great question. We've been in a 15-month period of time where the level of fear and anxiety has ramped up to a really high level for some people. And, that's not necessarily going to come down right away. Now, maybe over the course of the summer, the cases continue to go down, people develop a greater sense of confidence, and hopefully come September, people who are a little bit more reticent will feel more comfortable. But, whether that is right now, with things really just somewhat recently starting to open up, that people are just sort of magically going to feel immediately comfortable. I think that's not necessarily realistic. But listen, I think just a final point. It's been readily apparent to me over the course of this school year that this community will hold me highly accountable for opening schools. And my ability to perpetuate in this school district, my professional body of work, my reputation is what's at stake, as well as the ability to get children to schools. So we will do what is necessary to get schools open. But if you're asking me right now, at this moment in time, I can't tell you that. But it will be clear, and make no mistake about it, we understand that our parents need our kids back at school full time. But there's questions that we simply do not have the answers to right now. And I'm not the person to give those answers. I don't have those right now.
Ms. Huerta?
Or maybe a suggestion as well. In the minority and non-English speaking community, there is many campaigns going around about addressing vaccine hesitancy and accessibility. So there's, basically the idea and the knowledge that people who want the vaccine have gotten the vaccine, have had the opportunity to have the vaccine and have gone out to do that. And I think now possibly what we could do is help push that number up of people who are hesitant to get the vaccine. But if we have it available, for example, how we did with the township and the county did the COVID pop-ups. I think that that would be very helpful to the community, and it'll help us get our numbers, our vaccination rates up. And just addressing the Hazel, I believe Hazel Elementary School PTA had a vaccine Q&A, and I think that those are the kinds of efforts as well that we can implement that I don't really see in this particular plan, and it's just something that's now, I think going to be very helpful. I know that this is just a frustrating year in general, and it's a very hard and tough year to be a leadership and to be in leadership positions. And Dr. Cascon, I just want to say that, I thank you for the work, and I believe in your leadership and your ability to take the district where we need to go. And so, although maybe we don't all agree on everything, I still do believe that you have the best intentions for this town and this community and the students in this district. And that's all.
Thank you.
Ms. Merklinger?
Thank you. So looking at the chart and the breakdown, could you, so if I'm understanding this, this is the reopening plan, right? So this is how we're getting our students back to school in September to obtain this grant and where the monies will be spent. Could you speak a little, I'm having a hard time understanding the diversity, equity, and access piece. I think we've definitely discussed about the assessment and the learning loss. Is that what this 200,000 is being spent on? I just want to understand, because I know we have in our budget an actual diversity PD budget item. So I'm just trying to understand where this fits into the overall, I guess, with what the difference between that budget item is versus this budget, or if, for lack of a better phrase, the budget with this grant.
Sure. So if the board recalls, in our efforts to balance a budget, particularly with the reintroduction of 22 positions, which had been previously slated for cut, we cut our professional development budget quite a bit. And so this is in one way an effort to sort of recoup some of that funding. But I think you're on the right track, Ms. Merklinger, which is when we talk about understanding as students come back to our schools and have encountered a wide range of different challenges related to socioeconomics or what have you, is really providing training to staff members to kind of understand and be more sensitive and understanding to the different types of challenges that learners bring to the classroom, and creating classroom environments that are sensitive to that are supportive of that. So it's a twofold rationale. One was because we really cut our PD budget pretty bare to balance the budget, so it enabled us to recoup some of that funding. But there's also a relevant focus as it relates to reopening our schools and addressing student needs.
So just to follow up on that. So I think, I believe it was the last board meeting, our last public board meeting, not the workshop. But Mr. Viney brought up some really great points about social emotional learning and trauma, and ensuring that we were providing our faculty and folks, supervisors, principals with that training to be able to recognize and how to assist our students. So I guess in looking at the professional development versus diversity, equity, and access, I think if in my opinion, and this is not to say I'm right or wrong, I probably would have liked to see it flipped, the 200,000 towards the social emotional learning and trauma PD versus the diversity, equity, access training and coaching models pieces. I just thought Mr. Viney brought up some really great points about what we could do to implement for our students, just and for our faculty, because like you said, we're not the experts at this. And just being able to recognize, and we don't know what traumas students have encountered at home during this time, what parents were, the stress that parents were undergoing. I mean, I know I have one child, and trying to work full time from home while helping him and assisting him, and he's 16. I can imagine what parents who have younger children were experiencing. And I know we had some tragic events within our own community during that time. So I'm just wondering if maybe we could consider just maybe making some adjustments in the funding pieces. I know I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong on this, but I just thought that Mr. Viney brought up some really great points that we would maybe want to consider.
Yeah,
Just kind of tweaking maybe some of the funding where it's falling.
that's fair. I think that's some good feedback. You know what, I'll just ask Mr. Mendez, would you mind just making a note of that, just for us to have a follow-up conversation about that? Thank you for that. It's not a bad point. Appreciate that. And whether we cut into that 200,000 or we, you know, we kind of reallocate from another area, pull a little here and there to build that up. I think that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Any other discussion? Dr. Cascone, I have just heard that we will be getting some information from NJDOE soon.
Beautiful.
So don't despair. It's coming at a snail's pace, but coming nonetheless.
Good to know.
Mrs. Flowers, would you kindly take a vote for us, please?
Okay, voting for reports, D&E, Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Vice President Tunnicliff,
Yes.
President Trigg Scales.
Yes.
Thank you.
And this brings us to petitions and hearings of citizens. Questions on anything? It can be an agenda item, but it can be on any topic of your choice. And we ask that you move to the podium and you may unmask once you get there. And you know that. No, we're doing in person first. Mhm. And we ask, as usual, that you give your name and address, and we will set the clock for 3 minutes.
Hello, Dr. Cascone and the board. Thank you for your time. My name is Paula Healy. I live at 9 Lowell Avenue in West Orange, obviously. I just wanted to briefly talk to you today about project graduation that we have planned for the kids on Thursday night. So far, we have a good amount of kids coming in, and we've opened up ticket sales till tomorrow, so we're really happy about that. One thing that I did want to let you know about project graduation and what we do for the students of the graduating class is we provide them with lawn signs. We provide them with their senior fun day. We provide them this year with their face painting, their tattoos, everything that went ahead with senior fun day. We also made them a 45-foot banner this year to celebrate them and to have their names on them so they could see their names when they enter Conforti Avenue on graduation day, which is something I'll touch base later on. But I do want to say this is my last year running project graduation. I've been doing it since 2017 with my co-chair who ended last year, Robin McLelly. And I do want to say at this point that running project graduation has been a great experience, a fun experience, watching those kids come off the bus when they've graduated and just having a good old time. But I am sad this year that our children cannot graduate together. And I think that, and I don't think, I know a lot of parents have emailed the board and the administration of the high school and have not gotten any response. So today I'm asking you, and I'm up here on behalf of those parents that have not gotten a response. I think it's very important at a board meeting like this for you to respond as to why our children cannot graduate together on Thursday when all these surrounding towns in our area that we've looked to for advice in past instances. Here's a long list: Cedar Grove, Bloomfield, Verona, East Orange, Columbia, Orange, Montclair, Livingston, Toms River, East and North, Passaic Valley, Fairlawn, Sparta, Nutley. I haven't seen a graduation on Facebook that did not have their entire class graduating together. On May 19th, the restrictions were lifted. And a lot of parents want to know why we did not follow the same graduation process as the other towns surrounding us. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Flowers, I think you have, I think you said 5. You would share those with us,
I have
please.
7.
7, okay.
Yes. Okay, the first comment from our Google Doc is coming from Ms. Lenore Isaac of 28 Overlook Avenue. Her comment or question: I realize it is too late to change the logistics of the high school graduation, but could we at least have a live stream to share in real time with with family and friends who cannot attend? The second comment is from Tara Orabana at address 8 Club Boulevard. I'm disappointed and saddened that the West Orange High School administration did not make more of an effort to prove this graduating class and provide this year's graduating class an opportunity to graduate as an entire class. CDC guidelines have allowed the opportunity for outdoor activities to operate without restrictions on May 19th. That gave them plenty of time to take action for the senior class, which I feel have become the invisible class. Let me just transition to the bigger font. My eyes are challenged. Excuses were made by Mr. Moore and Dr. Cascone, which I believe was the easy way out for them. Yes, it's the largest class. Yes, some may still feel unsafe. Wear a mask, but the excuses just sad. At least bring the 3 sessions to 2. This is unacceptable. They will have project graduation. They had the prom with a large group. That really is the issue. Also, with that being said, to find out this graduation will be taped and shown after July 3rd, ridiculous. Ridiculous to think they can't at least stream all 3 sessions. One second, guys, bear with me. This font is. Okay. Who wants to watch this after the fact? People will be celebrating with parties after graduation and watching it after July 3rd, a joke. It will be just a distant reminder of the lack of support shown in this 2021 senior class. I hope the administration does right by them in some way, but at this point, I'm not holding out hope. I just hope moving on, this doesn't become a new norm for any graduating class not to graduate as one, because if that's the case, I won't be proud to be part of this West Orange community who I have loved for over 20 years. If other school districts figured out a way to make this work, so should our school district have. Shame on everyone who has been part of this decision-making process. Our third comment is from Ms. Carla Bernard of 19 Fairmont Terrace. Her comment or question: my goal in writing this is to make the superintendent and the board aware that I would like to see an in-person graduation for all members of the class of 2021 together as one group. I understand that when plans were made, many more restrictions were in place, and that dictated why decisions were made. I also understand that it may be too late to make these changes and that doing so, due to the size of the class, might warrant changing the amount of guests that each graduate is allowed. Keeping those things in mind, I'm asking that at least the graduates be allowed to sit together as a group during each ceremony. I do not see why this can't be done. They have had a prom, they have had project graduation planned, and I do not see why they can't have this given to them. So much has been taken away from them. Can we at least give them the experience of sitting next to their classmates and throwing their caps into the air as a group after they receive their diplomas? I urge you to at least consider this and give them this memory. Thank you. Our fourth comment is from Ms. Joanne D. Simone of 3 Edgewood Avenue. It seems there are parents planning to ask the board tonight to combine the high school graduates on Thursday. Personally, I am fine with the 3 ceremonies, mostly because I think having an outdoor event with this large of a group will create some challenges. If it's hot, that's a long time to have everyone outside sitting around. I also assume that if we combine, there will be new limits on guests. I know several families, including myself, who have guests who have already traveled in for the ceremony. I am curious to know how the board feels about it. On another personal note, I have 2 disabled guests coming to graduation, and I requested an accommodation for them, which I felt was met with some resistance from Ms. Mancarella. I would like the board and administration to consider allowing disabled guests with handicap parking permits to park in the lot closest to the track. I was told the lot by the bubble was exclusively being used for faculty and staff. I'm frankly confused as to why wheelchair users and those with other walking devices are not being properly accommodated. I ended up asking if a drop-off by the bubble could be our plan B in case my guests are unable to manage the long walk from Conforti. But honestly, this should not be our plan B. An accommodation should be made ahead of time. If the district has accommodations already in place, please make them public knowledge. Ms. Mancarella did say she'd put us on a handicap list, but I don't really know what that means, and it wasn't initially offered. If I'm being completely honest, the best entrance for wheelchairs is the Carteret Street entrance. The incline by the track entrance is steep. Perhaps something can be worked out. I would just like you to take these things into consideration. I know guests are supposed to enter with their graduate, but for some, it's easier said than done. If anyone would like to contact me privately, I would be happy to discuss further. Thank you for your time, consideration, and all you continue to do for the class of 2021. Our fifth comment is from Ms. Nicole Fensky, 13 Sunnyside Road. I wish I could be there in person, but we are most likely in the car somewhere between Boston and West Orange after attending my daughter's college orientation. My husband and I are unsure after everything our students have been through, and in light of all outdoor restrictions being lifted, why we are unable to watch our daughter graduate with all of her friends. We were told early on in the year that the school was holding off on planning graduation to try to get the best for the students. Our daughter, who has voiced her opinion to Dr. Cascone via email, does not care that 3 separate graduations are easier for the administration. And yes, those are the words I was told. It's easier this way. Nothing about this year has been easy on our seniors or any of our students for that matter. Our daughter certainly does not think this is what is best. The seniors were able to all be together for prom and senior fun day. They will all be together for project graduation, so let them all be together for graduation. If parents are uncomfortable, then wear a mask. Have a social distancing area for those parents, like the baseball stadiums were doing. Think outside the box. Show the class of 2021 that you really do care about them, because at this point, they feel forgotten. Our next comment is from Ms. Nicole Harper, 88 Winsley Avenue. Why can't the senior class of 2021 be afforded the opportunity of one graduation to celebrate each other's accomplishments? And final comment is from Mr. William Rensler of 50 Calamar Terrace. Why is West Orange unable to hold one graduation while the surrounding districts can and have? And that's all of our comments and questions submitted through our Google document.
Thank you, Mrs. Flowers.
You're welcome.
Dr. Cascone, would you like to begin?
Just kind of a couple of concrete points that I've made note of. We will look into the live stream option for sure to understand whether that's feasible. I appreciate the question and concern about the disabled guests and ensuring that those accommodations are exactly what they need to be. While some of that parking near the bubble is reserved, I don't see any reason why we can't have transportation. I know typically what we've done is we've had handicapped parking areas, and we've had the individuals transported by golf cart to a certain location in the facility. So I will definitely follow up on that. In terms of why we didn't follow the same processes of the districts on when that came in May 19th. It's as a superintendent, it's when you're looking at building principals and school administrators and finding a balance between when it comes to operations, right? As building principals, knowing their facilities, knowing their student bodies, knowing their communities, perhaps a bit more in depthly than the superintendent, understanding their organizational capacity, and quite frankly, Mr. Moore, who's an administrator and a community member, he's been in this district a long time. He's been the high school principal for a long time. Kind of inserting myself into the process and saying it's going to be like this. I know you're saying I know you're saying you don't want to do it or you don't feel comfortable doing it, but you're going to do it. That's a tough move for a superintendent, operating sort of in isolation from the building. But I have sought to try to understand, what the reservations are. And admittedly, perhaps, being reflective, perhaps I could have had a more pointed conversation about it earlier on that May 19th date. I can be reflective about that and have exerted my will a bit more earlier in the process. In terms of responses, I know that Mr. Moore's responded. I had been a bit remiss in responding, though I did make a point tonight to respond to all of the students and the parents who had emailed me. I think that, and I noticed in some of the comments, and I understand it, these are tough. It's tough for me to respond in a way. I understand the strong feelings that people have. And so, I want to be delicate with my words and choose my words very carefully. The mention of project graduation, of the prom, fun day, right? I mean, I think you could make the same argument that that the class from last year had none of those opportunities. They had no prom, they had no project graduation. I think they might have had a fun day in the beginning of the year. And I think the other thing that the high school administration was looking at is that, yes, certainly this is about the kids, but this is also about the families as well, and wanting to give as many family members an opportunity to attend. I understand that it's got to be very frustrating as a parent, family member, to be like, well, why are they able to do it in these other school districts? And in terms of my response was never, because it's easier. I think you won't know me well enough to know that I have better communication skills than that. I would not respond, certainly would not respond to a student that way, or anyone for that matter. It's not simply a matter of just being easier. I think that Mr. Moore, would have the best insight into what his reservations are and why he's decided to move forward with the plan. I've had multiple conversations with him since I understood that, people were obviously disappointed about it. And as a principal who tends to be pretty, a community-based principal, a principal that really does, I would argue, try and give people what they want when they want it. I think the fact that he's remained resolute on this is as much of a red flag to me to say, he knows, he sees something on this that I don't, as somebody that's run that building for 10 years. He knows there's something about it that concerns him. And it's always a tough call as a superintendent to insert myself and overrule a principal and say, you're going to do it even though you have reservations about it. I can tell you, having attended the 8th grade promotion ceremonies on Friday, there were 2, obviously smaller class, that the kids, the kids were taking pictures with their friends afterwards. The parents, were happy, were positive about the experience. And the students will have an opportunity after the graduation ceremony to be together with their friends at project graduation. We know that they'll be getting together with their closest friends for graduation parties and things of that nature. I think at this point, being Monday, June 21st, the likelihood of us being able to pivot and change is probably pretty slim. And I understand that that's that is very disappointing to a lot of folks, but I don't really have too much more to say about it at this point in time. I don't know if the board had anything to offer. I mean, one of the community members did ask what the board's thoughts were, so perhaps the board has some thoughts to offer.
Ms. Huerta?
I get to go first. I think it's a very difficult position, but I've seen in town the comfort that has gone up, and if parents and family members feel hesitant to attend, that's their choice as well, to either attend or not attend. Outdoors, it's safer. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings. Even in my own household, it's a very head to head, we have very differences of even how we're living in our own home. So I think it's just a difficult decision to make as a superintendent and as a principal. But I think that if we can try and do it for the kids, then even accommodate the students to be together and less family members, unfortunately, it is difficult. And I know that some family members did fly in, and it's just so close to time. It's too, as Dr. Cascone has mentioned before, we're out of runway. It's just everything has been happening so fast. Even, the information that we receive for this agenda meeting, it's so much at one time, and we're all trying to process it and make pivots on many different levels. And so I think that, I know Dr. Cascone saying the likelihood of it happening is slim, but if we can look into it, perhaps even just one more time and show that good faith that, just run it by one more time and see, what we can do for the seniors. And maybe even get their input. I mean, I know it's a lot of the parents, but, have a poll within the schools among the students. That's all.
I echo a lot of what Melinda said. I think in prior years, we had graduation at Cody Arena and parents were limited to 2 tickets. So I do like the idea if we're able to live stream and combine into one ceremony. I don't think there's a hard, fast rule that says we have to have graduation at 10 a.m., 12 p.m., and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, the turf, I can fully tell you it is 10 degrees hotter in the sun. So I would hope that maybe we could look at moving graduation to later in the afternoon when maybe the sun is not as hot, 4 o'clock. It is difficult to see the students who are in prom, they're going to project graduation. So the same students are going to be together. And, I think back, when I graduated from Rutgers, I maybe hung out with my track teammates and my sorority sisters. I couldn't tell you who the rest of the 5,000 other students were at Rutgers, but my high school graduation, I can tell you who exactly I sat next to about the ceremony. And it means so much to these kids because for some of them, it is the last time that maybe they'll be able to see each other and spend time with each other as they go off to their endeavors in the future. So if there is a way that we can do something to give them that opportunity, I would like to see us do that.
Mr. Rothstein.
Oh, boy. At the risk of disappointing some very close friends and others in the community who I know feel very deeply about this, I feel at this time a decision has been made and I support that decision. There's a lot that goes into making this happen, and there are, it's a disappointing decision in what's been a very disappointing year and a half of our lives. And one of many things to be hurtful to many of us. At the same time, I think this has been a year of resilience, a year of finding optimism and finding perspective in challenges and in things that haven't gone the way that we've wanted them to go. And I know that as a community, this is something that, we can all find our way through and move forward, finding the best in what's going to happen on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Vice President Tunnicliffe.
Thank you. I echo Mr. Rothstein's comments. I would love to see all our students together, but commencement is as much about logistics and how that's going to play out with the students, with the parents, with the parking, with the rentals. So there's a lot of things that go into a commencement that, behind the scenes that are not easily fixed without a lot of resources. So, I would say that it would be difficult at this point on a Monday, 3 days prior, to make a massive change to that, although I would love to see that. It's just, there was a reason we were in the arena, because we're too large. People wanted tickets. When my daughter graduated 9 years ago, it was 5 tickets. I don't know what it is now, but they have the ample parking there. We don't have that here at the high school. And that would be a big problem, bringing in 600 students plus guests without creating a traffic nightmare and a nightmare for all the housing around the area. So, as disappointing as it is, I feel like it's probably the best course of action at this point.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. To be perfectly honest, I was a proponent for 2 groups, and no one else was interested in 2 groups. Having been a high school principal and having been an assistant principal at the high school for a number of years, I know that we as a board cannot say to a high school principal 3 days before graduation that we want you to change the whole script. As much as it would be wonderful to have everybody together, that's not where we are at this point in time. And I can't imagine asking the high school administration to change their plans at this late date. As far as project graduation, that's just fabulous. Can't thank you enough for what you've done. I remember when high school project graduation started in the 80s. My husband was principal here at Edison, and I thought it was the most incredible idea. So what did I do? I told Montclair all about it. And the next year, Montclair took that best practice and started project graduation. So it's an incredible evening for the kids, a culminating activity. So thank you for all of your hard work to make that happen for our students. And at this time, if the board has additional reports and comments, we're ready for those. Ms. Huerta, we'll swing back by you.
Thank you, President Scales. Just to say that I hope that everybody has a safe summer and that I hope that all the students enjoyed, whatever few or, whatever opportunities they did get, however many or however few they did get. My son is at Edison and we did the movie night. He had such a great time. And they did, what was it, like a car parade, and they loved it. All of the kids were outside. I didn't attend, but I was very, I saw that he was so, so many people were there. So I was more like reserved in myself, but I didn't want to deprive him of that opportunity. And he is fully vaccinated. He did actually, he was very on top of getting himself vaccinated as soon as possible. The day he heard that it was available for 12 and over, he was like, "Mom, did you make my appointment?" And so, I'm just glad. And I know that also should be addressed. There's many families who are still hesitant about the vaccine for their own children. They may have gotten it as adults, but they're still hesitant about getting it for their children. And so I think that I just would like to see more advocacy for that and addressing and making people feel comfortable. Because at this point, I think it's such an isolating issue that people won't admit that they haven't gotten vaccinated. So, they walk around without a mask and it's just hard. And that just creates further division. But thank you for everybody that was here. It was a great event, and it was nice to watch the honors and the people receiving their awards. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta and Ms. Merklinger.
Thanks. So since this is the end of the school year, I do want to thank all of our faculty and staff for an amazing school year and for all the hard work. But in light of tonight being the recognition rewards, I just want to thank our parents. I think our parents really had to step up their game this year with having to be virtual, having to step in and not only be mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, whatever your role is at home, whether you were full-time or part-time, but having to be there, for a lot of us who didn't go into the education field, it was definitely, having to think back to, wow, what was pre-calc? How did I do this? Or learning to, everyday math and 2 + 2 might be 4, right? So I definitely just want to give a round of applause to the parents this year for really stepping up and being there, to help our students and faculty in our community, like we always do, right? We are West Orange, and we step in and we step up when we need to. So I just want to recognize our parents in our community for that. A lot of things went on this past couple of weeks. It's been a whirlwind. We had so many events going on at the different elementary schools, 8th grade graduations. One of the things I did notice is we had a little bit of differences in who did what and who was doing what and who was 6 feet apart, who was 3 feet apart, who didn't have masks. So just going forward, maybe looking to kind of streamline some of the events. I think we had a lot of really great ideas. I happened to be driving on Main Street when Edison had their movie night, and it was so great to see everyone out there. The big screen was up. So, just things like that where the community was really engaged. I think that was really great to see and to see some normalcy and being able to give our students some really fun events to do. With the seniors, so, this class is near and dear to my heart. I know so many of these students that are graduating this year from West Orange High School, and I'm so proud of them for all the accomplishments that they've done. Unfortunately, I cannot be there this week, so I did want to just give them my congratulations. And, the only advice to offer, is find your passion, whatever that is, whether you go into corporate America, you go into education, you work with your hands, which I think is amazing, because how many times I have to call a plumber or someone because I personally can't do it. But I just wanted to say a quote that I, hold near and dear to my heart is, "A dream written down with a date becomes a goal broken down into steps becomes a plan backed by action becomes reality." So I hope each of you, as you go off into the world, find your reality. And I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and have a great summer.
Thank you, Ms. Merklinger and Mr. Rothstein.
Thank you. First off, just a reflection, my daughter graduated from middle school, from Roosevelt Middle School, was at the ceremony on Friday. And what a really beautiful ceremony on the high school football field. And really just got me thinking about how a seemingly small act can just fill you with so much pride and so much joy, and how happy I was to be there celebrating with parents who I didn't even know, people who I hadn't seen or met before, and yet we were like best friends, just giddy with excitement for our children and sadness over the rapid passage of time. It all just came together in one package. So I just wanted to express that gratefulness to have come to that moment and to have been able to celebrate this moving on. And I know for our high school seniors who, again, especially at these important transitional times, they'll be moving on to new experiences. Everybody's going to be stepping forward, putting this past year and a half behind us and moving forward to bigger and better things. Congratulations to all of you on an incredible year and on your perseverance, and best wishes. I'm going to ask for a little help here because I'm forgetting the last name. Anna Easter Brown. Thank you so much. The ceremony here in the Learning Media Center on Saturday, Juneteenth celebration, but also an honoring of Anna Easter Brown, who was a student here at the middle school. I won't say too much about this. I'm sorry, at the high school. I've got middle school on the brain. How emotional it was to know that a student from this school from so long ago went on to achieve so much and to be a librarian, and that her portrait will hang opposite the entrance to the library looking into it. It was an emotional ceremony. It was a moment of great pride, and I look forward to seeing her portrait on the wall whenever I'm passing by the library. Finally, one last thing on the new roles that are being added: the Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Intervention, and the Supervisor of Grants, Accountability, and Testing. Those job titles are a little bit too long for me, and I'm thinking of them as data and dollars. And just wanted to say how pleased I am to see these additions to the administration, to see us moving forward in a way that I think will help ensure that the district is well run and that we're looking at opportunities in a new way and bringing better things to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rothstein, and Vice President Tunnicliffe.
I always hate going after Mr. Rothstein because he always is very eloquent. So yes, we had the opportunity to attend the dedication for Anna Easter Brown, and it was a very moving ceremony, and I was pleased to be able to be there. Do want to wish all of our graduates congratulations and best wishes as you head off to your next steps. This has been a rough year, and I know that it's not been easy for any of the parents or the graduates. Usually this is my favorite board meeting of the year, even before I got on the board, because it's always such a celebratory time to acknowledge all of the folks in our community, from students to teachers to parents to community members, with everything that they've done. And particularly in this year, it's a bit more poignant when we've had such a struggle this year for everything. And it feels a little bit more sad this year because I know there's a lot of disappointment in the community about the way commencement is going to be and just the way the whole year turned out for everybody. So it's hard to see that, but we do wish everybody well, and I'll look forward to celebrating with everybody at commencement on Thursday. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Tunnicliffe. And if you think you're in a bad position going forth, by the time you get to fifth, there's not much left, but I'm going to reiterate a couple of things. And one is that I did have the pleasure of attending both of Roosevelt's and both of Liberty's moving up ceremony, the promotion ceremony with Dr. Cascone. And how nice it was to be able to interact with parents and students and to be able to have those small conversations as they were processing through. And congratulations to all of our kindergarten, fifth grade and eighth graders as they move up. And congratulations to all of our staff, our teachers, our administrators, our support staff, our students, our caregivers, and our parents on completing this memorable school year. It hasn't been easy, but so many valuable lessons have been learned that will make us all more flexible, more resilient, and more courageous. We have done things, all of us this year, that we could never imagine could be possible. So I think we're all going to be stronger as a result of this year. And just the Juneteenth celebration, again, I want to thank the West Orange African Heritage Organization who presented the portrait of Anna Easter Brown to Mr. Moore and to Dr. Cascone and to myself. And she's a graduate from the class of 1897. And she is African-American. And when she went to the high school, it was in a small church. She didn't come here, obviously. And so we're just thrilled that we were able to learn more about her. And I want to thank Ms. Graftiza and her assistants who have been with us. We've started the live streaming, and this is the final meeting of this final board meeting of this school year. And I want to wish everyone a happy summer, but most of all, I want to wish that everyone stays healthy. And yes. Yes. And before we adjourn, the board did approve Dr. Tamika Pollins as the new long title.
I already put it away.
And Dr. Pollins is with us this evening. So Dr. Pollins, would you, and you can take your mask off, it's okay. You've got space around you. So Dr. Pollins, welcome to West Orange. We all are happy that you're here. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
Oh, that was quick on the draw, Ms. Huerta. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Tunnicliffe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next board meeting will be on July. Yes, it is July. I'm having a hard time saying that. July 12th at 7:30 PM here at West Orange High School. Meeting is officially adjourned.